motion.
What's up? We're back with Black Friday. We're here with Burley. We're going to talk about young Black Pittsburgh. How you doing, Brian?
I'm good, man. Appreciate it.
He's going to tell us about his book, how he got started, a couple ideas. We're going to go over some things about him, where he's from. We'll give him his ideas. So where you from, Brian?
I grew up in East Hills, went to Shimley High School, been a product of the Pittsburgh Public School my whole life. Born and raised right here in the city. Went away to school, went to Morehead State University down in Kentucky for undergrad. Ended up having a couple opportunities, one of which was in Pittsburgh, the other of which was in DC. And that cost of living difference wasn't enough to make that DC move that much more popular. So ended up coming back here, working in Pittsburgh for a while, and never left. So it's home. And even more than it being home, it's love. You know what I mean? It's always love back home. So.
I bet to the young people, them knowing your background and you coming up in the same school systems that they're into, you know the realities that they face and some of the hardships that they go through going to these Pittsburgh public schools. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about some of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the really cool things about, and not even trying to jump into this project, but just in dealing with somebody who's from the city, mm-hmm. right? Like you deal with things differently because you understand what the realities are, right? Like I've been in those hallways. I was in those fights. I was in those types of situations. I met those girls. I was on those same streets and different things like that. But I think that when you have that level of real understanding about where you're coming from, it's harder to take it as inauthentic, and not necessarily really being your authentic self. So, like, I can't be anything more than who I am, and I'm Pittsburgh going through. That's just what it is.
And I bet it makes it easier for people to relate to you as well. And just to get into your book a little bit, everybody in this book is either from Pittsburgh or lives in Pittsburgh currently.
Mm-hmm. Yep, everybody. So, it's been interesting hearing things about the city over the last, even as recent as last few months, where there will be people or there will be articles written or different things along those lines where people will say, there's no young Black population within the city of Pittsburgh. There's no young Black professionals, or this population just doesn't exist. And, we got 290 pages that says that's not necessarily factual. This book you see in front of us, this is Young Black Pittsburgh. Jules got a copy of it right here. And the idea of this project, more than anything, came from one day after class. A young lady who's now a sophomore at Cal U actually came up to me and said, B, we believe you, right? Like, we understand your story, we see you, right? And we see your friends when you bring them in and different things along those lines. But as far as what we see on the news every day about what people like us look like and what they do, and as far as the different stories that we see about the city, and as far as all of these other different things, it gets hard for us to really believe that we can be all these things you tell us we can be, because all we see in front of us is the foolishness, right? Or it's, the crime, or it's, like, how do they publicize us on TV if it's not, when you watch the news, how do you see us portrayed if it's not on the Steelers or in regards to the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Pirates or something else like that? It's involving crime. 86% of the stories that are involving Black males, this was a study that was done in 2013, on local news are involving crime in some way, shape, or form. Right? And, we have the ability as adults to change the channel, right? But I remember as a kid, and I don't know how it was in your house, but when my mom turned on the channel, I wasn't touching the remote. You know what I mean? So in kind of understanding that piece of it, our kids are exposed to this, and that's all they're exposed to. So how are they supposed to think that they can be anything different if all the exposure they have to what people like them and who look like them do is through the media. So my idea, more than anything else, right? And of course, we had speakers who would come in, and that was great, but they would kind of come and go, right? But my idea was create something permanent, and create something that they could take with them, or they could go home with them, or anything else like that. And that's where the idea and concept for Young Black Pittsburgh came from. We thought about and kind of consider calling it Dear Young Black Pittsburgh, but it's Young Black Pittsburgh writing to Young Black Pittsburgh.
I like that.
And I appreciate that.
How did you get these people that you had in mind to be in your book? Like, what did you have some type of criteria checklist? How did you get these people, and what process did you put them through into getting all these letters together?
So I think in looking at like my original goal for this project was to have 50 people.
Okay.
Right? Like that was my first goal. Like, all right, I know I can get 50 people who believe in, because the book wasn't even a real book until March, maybe February at the earliest, right? Like that was when it became something that was tangible and something that was real. Like prior to that, it was pictures and pages and PDFs and stuff that I was sending from my phone to my computer and airdropping and all these other things. But like I knew conceptually, I wanted it to be a book. But I reached out to, I'd say, an initial 50 people, and thinking about how things normally work when you reach out to 50 people, you're probably going to have to reach out to 500 to get 50, right? You get 10% or whatever. It's a numbers game, right? But I reached out to 50, and of those 50, as a part of the submission packet that they had to send in for being a part of the project, there was a recommended, what we call the Fab 5 recommendation, where people would recommend 5 people who they thought would be great fits for the project as well.
That's smart.
So, and also when we sent it to those people, they then sent it out to 5 more people, and we would send it out to those people. Like we said, traditionally you get 10% of the people that you reach out to. So you would think, all right, we got 140 people, we had to reach out to 1,500 people to get this amount of people.
Right.
It wasn't that. We ended up reaching out to, I'd say, a max of 400 people.
Did you have some people that said no?
We had people that said that they didn't have time for it. And then, and I think the kind of understanding that piece of it, where it's like, we had a 40% response rate, and to be honest, from my perspective, I didn't expect that. Yeah. Right? Like, I expected to be reaching out to people I didn't expect to have to stop reaching out to people because of the amount of responses that we were getting. So it was just, I had more people that I wanted to reach out to, but at the same time, we had 160 people that responded within a 3-month time span. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, yeah, I thought we was gonna do 50, but let's try and do as many, because I figured, like I said previously, the only thing more powerful than 50 stories is 150 stories, to me, right? Like, you could find a way to relate to somebody's story, the more stories that are there.
So let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Is there a way that we can get this book via, audio library?
So we're actually not going, I would love to do an audio book for it. What we're doing instead of an audio book, though, is we actually have Young Black Pittsburgh, the podcast, which is coming soon. I think the first episode will be released within a month.
That's gonna be dope.
But what the podcast will allow people to do is, there are some stories in there where people wanted to be able to write more and say more and be more and whatever else the situation was. And we want to allow people the opportunity to tell further about their story, right? Like, we want them to be able to say, like, oh, I know in the book I wrote about this, but let me break down that situation further. Like, let me tell you more about who I am and what I did. And, hopefully from that, like we said, the thing that we're trying to build is commonality in a lot of these stories. And so that's one of the ways that we're going to allow people to try and do that. And hopefully we'll be able to create, a pretty big listener base with the podcast, and allowing people to kind of build more into that. So that's something that I'm excited about, that's coming out within the month, I would say. What my hope is for this entire project is that, there's 140 stories in there. You can find somebody's story in there that hopefully you can be able to relate to, and, find a way to build something from, or get some inspiration from, get some love, and that's really what the entire project is about. Hopefully this is something that they're going to be proud to be a part of for the time, for for a long time coming, so we're not planning on stopping anytime soon.
I think they will be too. We thank you for your time.
I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you, brother.
Let them know where they can get your book from.
Sure. So right now, we're working on a couple different relationships, but if you would like a copy of Young Black Pittsburgh, typically and the easiest way to purchase the book is on our website. That is www.YNGBLKPGH.com. You can buy it off of there. We'll make sure we get it to you. And also the other piece that we talked about too, even if you already have a copy, if you like what you saw, if you love the entire premise of what it's built on, get a copy for a young person. We'll make sure it gets in the right young people's hands. We're doing events all over the city, and we need more copies of the book to go into these young people's hands.
Hey man, thanks for kicking it with us Black Friday. We're here with Brian Burley.
This guy, man.
Go get his book, Young Black Pittsburgh.
Appreciate y'all. Black Friday, man.